Andrew? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April 28th Town Council meeting. Before we begin tonight, I just need to go through our emergency evacuation procedures. Oof, we're loud and clear tonight. In the event of an emergency, please exit the two doors to your left or the front door in front of council chambers here. We would meet across the street, across Middle Road at the school administration building and await further instruction. If we could all now stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way. Pledge allegiance. All right, we are continuing with our budget discussions. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, so we are streaming via Zoom. For those of you that might be participating remotely, if you're participating on Zoom, there's an icon for you to indicate you have a question. If you're calling in on your phone, *6 will allow you to mute and unmute your phone. *9 will indicate you have a question. Anybody who does wish to participate with questions or comments, when called upon, if you come up to the podium, please provide your name and address for the town clerk. With that, we will begin with our roll call.
Ms. Ujifusa? Here. Ms. Abbott? Here. Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Katzman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly is not here. Dr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Ayer?
Here. Okay. So we are going to continue with our discussions on the budget. Last night, we ended off with a table discussion under the town clerk position regarding clerks, as well as the canvassers budget with the clerk as well. And we had requested some additional information on the organization within those departments. The town administrator did provide us some of the backup from a prior study that was done back in 2015. Is that correct?
16, I believe.
2015,
I think it
2016.
was started before I got here and ended after I got here.
Right. So I mean, I did highlight from the information that was provided, just the findings of the report. There were references that we were discussing last night about consolidation for efficiencies within, within the
I've done
structure.
a little work, so I can kind of drive you through some comments here.
Sure.
That hopefully kick off your discussion now.
Take it away, Mr. Rayner.
Okay. As you've obviously just highlighted, last night I was directed to provide a recommendation regarding moving the budgeting for the clerk currently in the canvassing office out of the canvassing budget and into the town clerk budget. I believe I was asked to consider this in the context of ensuring management's ability to promote cross-training of clerks between departments. So in my mind, there are then two considerations to address: a budgeting and accounting concern and a personal training and readiness concern. With respect to budgeting, there is no effect on the general budget if we move the position into the clerk's budget. The overall expenditures will remain the same. With respect to accounting, the offices in town hall are all tracked under general government, so it makes no difference where the position is placed in the budget. There are, however, a number of things to consider with respect to training and readiness. In 2015-16, a comprehensive review of the town clerk functions was conducted. The study recommended we establish a combined town clerk canvassing department under an appointed vice-elected town clerk. Since that study was released, the charter has been changed to make the town clerk an appointed position. We have hired a full-time clerk who works in the canvassing office, and we have updated the clerk classification and compensation plan. Additionally, in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement with the PMEA union, we have revised and updated the job descriptions of all PMEA employees. The canvassing office has not been combined with the town clerk office. The town administration does not appoint the canvasser. The canvasser is appointed by and reports to the canvassing authority. Therefore, combining the two offices under the current charter would be problematic and could lead to unintended conflicts of interest, not just for management, but also for the canvasser. It would also most likely require a change to the town charter. In accordance with the charter, the canvassing authority is also responsible for appointing and/or removing any part-time clerical help it deems necessary. Part-time help in the canvassing office is managed through the canvasser. The town clerk, the town council authorized the full-time clerk who is working in the canvassing office with the clear intent that the position would be cross-training and utilized in both the canvassing and the town clerk office. The council specifically addressed this at the April 13th, 2016 town council meeting. The charter also states that the registrar shall work cooperatively with the town clerk, who is an ex officio member of the canvassing authority. I think it is reasonable to extrapolate from this that the intent is that the town offices work cooperatively together. In my observation as town administrator, the two offices do cooperate. However, I will admit that there has been little cross-training between the employees assigned to these offices. I take responsibility for this, as there is obviously no ambiguity with regard to what the council wanted when I reviewed the August 16th tape of April 13th tape of 2016. So then my task becomes, how do I implement the council's direction that accomplishes the goal of ensuring cross-training of personnel between departments in a way that does not diminish the level of service and efficiency of our organization? So after discussing this with the HR director, the canvasser, and the town clerk, I recommend, one, we leave the clerk assigned to the canvassing office in the canvassing budget for now. Ultimately, it does not matter where the position is in the budget, but moving it out of the canvassing budget would send a very strong and perhaps unintended symbolic signal to the canvassing authority and to the PMEA union. I think the more important matter is to implement and enforce the concept and practice of cross-training clerks between the canvassing and town clerk offices. The HR director and I, would work with the union to update policies and job descriptions to reflect a policy of interdivisional training. 3, we would also work with the town clerk and canvasser to identify and leverage opportunities conducive to inter-office work and training in a way that does not negatively affect their operations. And then lastly, I recommend we reassess our progress at the end of the year after the next election. And if we determine it's necessary, we would transfer the clerk from the canvassing office to the clerk's office.
Excellent. Excellent summary there, Mr. Rayner. Sure.
Sorry to have folks reiterate. I was trying to get down your 4 recommendations and I missed a number 2 there. So
Number 2 would be that the HR and director and I would work with the union to update the policies and job descriptions to reflect our policy, your policy of interdivisional training.
got it. Thank you.
And the ultimate goal is to improve the efficiencies and operations within town hall, give everybody the support they need, and also provide those, services to the residents. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. It sounds like you have your work cut out for you to keep moving things forward. With those, it's not, not that your work's cut out for you, but you understand the mission here. And I think that's a reasonable approach. Improve the cross-training, defining the roles, and we can always reassess it and look at it next year. Any, Mr. Hamilton, any concerns?
No,
No.
the whole goal of this is to provide the citizens and also the staff with better training and more flexibility so that the citizens and the taxpayers and the voters in town get the best service they can. And if the canvasser needs more help, she can get one of the extra clerks in the office to come in and work in the canvassing office. And if the clerk needs more help, the clerk can come across the hall and work in the clerk's office. It's just the same way finance is working with taxes, everybody should have a little bit of knowledge all the clerks should be able to work in each department. Sorry. Sorry about the feedback.
Agreed.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Rayner, for your efforts on that, and I'm sure your input from town staff. For the purposes of tonight and our agenda, there doesn't appear to be any action to take other than to
Nope.
tentatively approve or provisionally approve the budgets.
Yes.
I'd look forward to perhaps deciding now or soon when you would reschedule a check-in with the council in a couple of months or something after you've worked with the director of HR and union, et cetera. So
I would propose the first meeting in December, as we generally cancel the second meeting, and that will be after the November
after the
election.
election.
Right.
Perfect.
Right, that makes the most sense.
It probably should be the first meeting in January, because usually the first meeting in December is induction of the
That's right, election year.
new
induction.
council and new school committee.
That's right.
Normally sometime around
The
that.
first
timeframe,
meeting
so.
after the second induction.
Yeah, it all
So,
depends on
yeah,
how crazy
I'll
it is and how
revise
long
that,
it takes to
so-
count the votes. So
That's right.
some years it's real quick, some years it's January.
Excellent point.
All right. So then to pick up from where we left off last night, we had gone through the expenditures, and I believe we had the provisional approval was for
For
the-
$481,925 for clerk expenditures.
For the town clerk office.
Correct.
So moved.
Actually, you did. And then Dr. Ryan seconded.
And then we deferred the vote.
Okay,
we tabled the vote.
got it.
Still had it.
So we just have to vote on it tonight,
Okay.
but we have to turn down the volume somehow because we're
Scaring
humming.
ourselves.
As this goes on, it hums. See? God bless you.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
Barbara, thank you. That seemed to fix it. Whatever little adjustment you made.
We're moving on.
So if we go to page 32. So on page 32 and 33, we have the canvassing budget. The proposed canvassing budget is reflective of anticipated increases in expenditures to this midterm election year. So overall, we anticipate a budget increase of 11.64%. And we ask for provisional approval of $290,634 for the canvassing budget.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 6-0.
So if we move to page 34, we have the finance budget. So with respect to salaries, again, in accordance with the memorandum of agreement with the PMEA union, the administrative clerk listed here is the third of three PMEA positions to be promoted to a level above the current C clerk rating. Additionally, one clerk has elected to receive the family health plan. We turn to the next page. With respect to operations, the operations budget for finance now accounts for our contract with GovInvest, our new actuary and budgeting firm, in the professional services line. We're also accounting for an increase in our liability and property insurance premium. So overall, the proposed finance expenditures are projected to rise 11.54%, we ask for a provisional approval of $1,022,001.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have, do you have comment? Mr. Grebe? Okay.
Tom Grieve, 110 Thayer Drive. The council has previously heard my concerns about the very large increase in the cost of our closed pension plan. This is the time for you to budget the needed pension review. Our closed pension plan's liability has increased almost 50% or $35 million. That is simply the total increased cost of the pension program to the taxpayers. It has nothing to do with whether the cost is or will be funded or the performance of the pension assets. Anyone would have to agree that a 50% increase in the cost of a pension program that has been closed is shocking. There is only about 300 people in our plan. That extra $35 billion goes only to those employees or some subset of them. What has caused this increase? Was the original plan that was put together by the pension committee flawed? Who will actually get the extra money and how much of it and why? Ms. Lasky's reply to my questions from the audit review clearly revealed that neither she nor the auditor know the answers to those questions. If our financial director, a CPA, and the auditor cannot answer these questions, it's the council's fiduciary responsibility to make sure the pension plan is being administered properly. The fact is, for the council to do this job, the council needs a detailed understanding of what has driven that $35 million liability increase. It is important that the council budget for this review now before time allows the problem to get even worse. Our town recently built a police station. If a third of the way through construction, it was projected to cost 50% more than the budget for the completed station, I am sure you would waste no time in investigating the causes. The pension program is in that exact same position. Its cost is 50% over its initial budget, but in this case, that budget is 7 times larger than the police station. The impact on the taxpayers is huge and needs to be addressed by the council. The bottom line is this: the closed pension plan has had a huge increase in cost, and this council does not know why. Therefore, no corrective actions can be taken. A complete review of the plan by an independent professional is required to get the needed information. The financial expense budget is the logical spot to put that effort, and the pension review needs to be budgeted now.
Thank you, Mr. Grebe. I am aware of your concerns. You have expressed them. We did provide some of those responses to you.
You've provided responses, but no answers. I want that on the record. You provided a response as you committed to. There were no answers.
Okay, we're not gonna debate that tonight. The issue regarding the pension, in my opinion, maybe we could refer that to the pension committee, see what their thoughts are. Tonight, we are here to provisionally approve a budget, which this isn't the final budget. And we could potentially get some feedback and then make an adjustment prior to finalizing our budget if it's deemed that we need to take a harder look at the pension. That's just a thought. One of 7. If other folks would like to weigh in, feel free to weigh in. But at tonight, I'm not prepared to just put a line item in here, a number. I don't know what that number would be. I don't know if anybody knows what that number would be.
I've had it estimated at between $25,000 and $35,000.
And we will take that into consideration. And again, maybe this is something that we should be referring to our pension committee to, they are also helping out with our pension system. So it wouldn't hurt to have them take a look at this issue.
I
for us
agree.
as well. So it's a suggestion. But I do not want to debate the issues tonight at this time with the response to your comments or that we're not going to do that tonight.
Okay.
Sure, feel free.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Under finance operations, professional services, there was no allocation last year, but there is this year of professional services for 31,750. That seems a fairly specific number. Is there?
Yeah, this is, as I referred to in my commentary, the line covers the expense for GovInvest, which is our new actuary slant budget firm.
GovInvest. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second on the provisional approval of $1,022,001. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So if we turn to page 36, here we see the human resources budget. Under salaries, you'll see that the HR assistant/payroll clerk is listed here, and this is the position that was eliminated from the PMEA union. As previously stated, we use the former D-clerk pay scale as our guide. This line reflects the final step. The HR director's compensation previously included vacation and overtime pays. I've eliminated this to make the package simpler and more transparent, and I combined it into one line which reflects the actual pay. In reality, the director is getting a 2% raise. Instead of summer employment, we are looking to be part of a program that develops municipal experience and leadership through an internship curriculum run by the Northeastern Cooperative Education Program. The defined benefit cost for town employees reflects the decreased actuarially required contribution for fiscal year 23. On the next page, page 37, we are proposing procuring the services of a payroll processing firm to substitute for what we have with our current finance software. The modules in our current software program don't adequately address our payroll needs because they're more designed for school and not municipalities. So we are also budgeting in this operations budget for 3 anticipated possible retirements in fiscal year 23, increased contributions to the OPEB funds, and increased workers' compensation insurance costs. So overall, we project a 0.19% decrease in HR expenditures, and we ask for provisional approval of $2,213,599 for this budget.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So on page 38, you'll see the legal budget. Overall, we are expecting a decrease in legal fees due mostly to the fact that the possible tax assessment case budgeted for last year has been resolved. In accordance with his contract, the town solicitor earns a base salary of $6,500 a month plus $100 an hour for additional services. For this budget, we combined additional services based on the average of invoices received with the base salary. So therefore, the solicitor's salary has not increased beyond his contract. We have simply combined the $78,000 annual base salary with his additional expenses. This budget is projected to decrease 6.38% And we are asking for provisional approval of $280,500 for legal expenditures.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So if we turn to page 39. Here we have the budget for our information technology department. In this budget, we reduced healthcare costs because the information systems manager has declined this benefit. The IT budget also accounts for our fiber internet service, internet security costs, software licensing, the costs associated with the domain transfer from .com to .gov, website hosting services, the video streaming costs, management of our on-site servers, and equipment leases. This budget is projected to decrease 6.6%, and we are asking for provisional approval of $294,092 for IT expenditures.
So moved.
That's increase.
Increase, I meant increase, I'm sorry.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So if we turn to page 40, here begins the budget for the tax division. So with respect to salaries, the salaries and benefits lines reflect a drop in the overtime, which has in the past been attributed to the Saturday hours that we were open in January to sell transfer station stickers. In operations on page 41, as I briefed last year, we anticipated $50,000 in expenses for the ongoing statistical revaluation. We budgeted about half last year, and the remainder is reflected in this budget proposal. So overall, the tax division budget is projected to decrease by 1.33%, and we are asking for provisional approval of $482,486.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So if we turn to page 42, here begins the planning department budgets. So with respect to the salaries and benefits you see on page 42, we anticipate hiring a new assistant planner, but not until early next summer. This is a union position, and the salary line reflects the appropriate starting pay scale and probable healthcare cost adjustments. On the next page, on page 43, in planning operations, we have adjusted the postage and printing line to reflect historic actual amounts. We are also accounting for mandated stormwater outfall monitoring testing fees as mandated by DEM this coming year in Island Park and Portsmouth Park. Overall, planning expenditures are projected to increase 1.47%, and we are asking for provisional approval of $364,498.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So on page 44, we see the building officials budget. With respect to salaries, the building official clerk will receive her final step increase in the next fiscal year. On the next page, page 45, you can see that advertising costs associated with the zoning board of review line has been zeroed out. So you see a $25,000 reduction there. Those costs have been more appropriately captured in the advertising line as we expect a slight drop in the number of required trips to Prudence Island for the purpose of inspections. So with respect to that $25,000, we moved $19,000 into the advertising line in the building official's office. And the remainder, that covers the zoning board, and then the remainder of that $25,000 will go into the next budget, the planning board budget. I take that back. I want to make sure I got that right. I just saw it before I walked down. It went into 5,000. Yeah, yeah, in the planning board. I'm sorry. So we divided it up appropriately between the zoning board and the planning board, but the zoning board costs for advertising are captured in this budget, in the building official's budget. So the building official budget is expected to increase by 3.26%. We are asking for provisional approval of $398,381.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
So here on page 46 is the planning board. This budget reflects a 2% raise for the admin officer and a slight decrease in costs associated with boards and committee fees. We ask for provisional approval of $38,735 for planning board expenditures.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. On page 47, you'll see the budget for the economic development division. With respect to salaries and operations, this budget projects a slight raise for the Director of Business Development and accounts for, in salaries and operations, it accounts for our dues and required fee to our membership, due to our membership in Connect Greater Newport. Overall, we expect a $5,000 increase in expenditures, which accounts for the dues to Connect Greater Newport. And we ask for provisional approval of $49,034 for the Economic Development Division.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Here we see the beginning of the budget for the Recreation Department. So with respect to salaries, we expect a drop in payroll expenses associated with non-beach summer hires. Additionally, we broke out off-season pay expenses from the beach payroll line. So that's now a separate line listed as other payroll. On the next page in operations, Glen Park expenditures have been moved into this budget, and camp program and event expenses have been decreased to reflect our actual experience last year. Overall, we are expecting a 6.7% decrease in Recreation Department expenditures, and we ask for provisional approval of $290,219 for this budget.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
So if we go to page 66, we have the expenditures for Glen Park and Melville Park. As I've just stated, Glen Park expenses have been moved into the recreation budget. So you see it's appropriately been zeroed out here. With respect to Melville Park, the Melville Park Committee has recommended an increase in expenditures for algae treatment and trail maintenance. And they are asking for provisional approval of $18,000 for Melville Park operations expenditures.
So moved.
Second.
And just one quick question. When's the, have we started the grant that is going to maintain or upgrade the trails? The money that was awarded for that, for Melville? Or when does that take?
Brian, if you can address that, please.
It's obviously not reflected in here, but.
So as of right now, we've been in contact with DEM. We're just finalizing all the paperwork right now, and then we'll be moving forward for doing the
Okay.
DEM grant.
Great, thank you.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So if we turn to page 67, here you can see the summary of proposed civic support expenditures for fiscal year 23, which were initially reviewed by the council on February 14th. Since then, the Be Great for Nate organization has announced the suspension of all sponsored activities, including fundraising efforts and the closing of their office indefinitely. Additionally, as a reminder, we used the acronym AIPC in our budget drafts, but this got interpreted as Equinix Island Prevention Coalition in the final proposal based on the use of the title Portsmouth Prevention Coalition, just one line above it in the budget. The budget line labeled Equinix Island Prevention Coalition is actually meant to be Equinix Island Planning Commission, and we will correct that in the final budget. So overall, minus the projected support for Be Great for Nate, civic support is proposed to rise 1.97% before the addition, correct, yeah, 1.97% before the addition of anticipated state library aid, which is a pass-through item and given to the Portsmouth Free Library as soon as it's received. So in total, I propose $1,075,311 for civic support, for which we request town council provisional approval. I would also ask that you decide what we do with the $3,000 that is no longer going to Be Great for Nate.
Mr. President, I have a suggestion for that $3,000. I'd like to move that into the town council contingency fund and earmark it for support for the library, not the library, excuse me, the playground upgrades that were presented to us on Monday night through the Four Hearts Foundation.
That is an excellent suggestion. Right now, there is zero in the contingency fund in this budget.
Yeah, so we would have to go back and re-provisionally approve our budget with that extra $3,000 in it, but it's just a place to hold the money for now.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Before we vote,
Is the motion to tentatively approve the civic support?
No,
budget?
right now it's
No,
just, a
that's
mo- my motion right now is just to take that
Just to the-
$3,000 and put it into contingency fund
Right.
to be utilized for the Four Hearts Foundation's fundraising goals to upgrade Turnpike Playground.
okay, so we can vote on that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. On the transfer to the contingency fund.
It'll just take a moment then. So that would change your expenditures for the town council to $13,916, vice $10,916. So you should provisionally approve $13,916 in expenditures for the town council.
So, second. Re-provisionally approved.
So we had a motion and a second on that.
Mhm.
Making too many notes here. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. So now, before we move on, the expenditure number currently minus the $3,000.
We would propose $1,075,311 for civic support. includes the $118,348 library.
Okay, all right.
I move to approve that.
Second.
But I just want to take some comments
Of course.
before we move on.
Sorry.
I don't know who was first. I'm sorry.
Nancy Grebe, 110 Thayer Drive. Portsmouth Library, Senior Center, Prudence Volunteer Fire Department, and the Prudence Island School Foundation all should be funded in the town of Portsmouth budget, but not under civic support. The remaining organizations, some very well-run, worthy nonprofits, should not be funded in this manner with taxpayer money. Putting these organizations under civic support is just disguising this funding by our elected officials as money for votes. I write my own checks to the organizations that I feel are worthy. This council should also write checks from their own accounts, not from taxpayers' money. Now on to my least favorite organization, the Equinix Island Planning Commission. It is beyond belief, financial, or any good sense that anyone would support this organization financially. In their own financial backup for this year's request, under donations, individual and business donations were under one line item. The total for individual and business was $25, not $25,000, not $2,500, not $250, $25. Anyone with a brain will surmise from this amount that only one business or person thinks this organization is worthy of minimal financial support. This is also simple proof that AIPC's own board of directors does not financially support their organization. I have served on several boards, including the Girl Scouts of the USA and a large nonprofit that provides supportive housing and services for homeless populations in Westport, Connecticut. Both of these organizations expected a sizable donation upon sitting on their boards. If you need more reasons not to fund this do-nothing organization, AIPC has had over 8 executive directors since 2012. Middletown has only 2 board members. Either they are serving out terms and the Middletown Council has seen the light, or the residents understand and are not volunteering to serve. Linda User-Fuchsia constantly reminds us of the almost $1 million grant from the EPA for the island waters BMPs on Equinix Island. How well has that gone? The 2016 3-year contract with the EPA states for 5 to 20 BMPs for this money. AIPC completed 2 for the money. 1 on a private business, the other more interesting, on a private homeowners association property in Middletown. What is most interesting is that the president of the homeowners association at the time, Richard Adams, was also president of the AIPC board and on the Island Waters Site Selection Committee. Seems like a conflict of interest. I cannot see any council member justifying financial support for AIPC to the voting taxpayers of Portsmouth. On another note, if Portsmouth continues to list civic support in the budget, I believe that the post-prom and the Portsmouth Education Foundation, very good money donators, should be listed under civic support, not town council. You vote on both. Finally, I have one question. The funding of the Prudence Island School Foundation backup gave the document which spells out this funding. The document also states that, quote, in an effort to encourage the town council's continued support of the foundation's effort to assist the elementary age students of Prudence Island, the school committee agrees to pay the town council a sum equal to the civic support contribution made by the town council, unquote. I've searched the school committee budget and cannot find this payment. Can anyone please tell me where in the school committee budget to look? I would have last evening, but my raised hand was not recognized. Do we get that money?
I think we can refer that to the school department and ask them for some clarification. You, in the past, the money was, we appropriated it in and got it back. It was the way it was set up. I can't really explain it, how it was
Give me
done.
a clue where to look for it.
There's no place to look for it. It
There's
was
no
a
place to
transfer
look.
there and a transfer back. So that practice has stopped and it's just in the town council budget and in the town budget now, period.
So I should add 59,300 some odd dollars to the school budget to know exactly how much we're paying for schools.
No,
No, they're not giving it to us.
we are not giving it to the school department so they can turn around and give it back to us. It just stays in town, in the town side budget. So it doesn't go back and forth anymore.
No,
That's,
but
that's
it should be added to the school budget to get a total for how
No,
much we spend for
the
schools.
transfer is no longer coming back and forth
I get it. I get what you're saying. You don't get what I'm saying.
because I don't understand what you're saying. I don't know why you would add $60,000 to the school budget when it doesn't exist.
It's,
Still doesn't make any
Makes no
sense.
sense.
Okay.
it's okay, she's an economist.
And I don't disagree about the Equinix Island Planning Commission. I would be more than happy to take the $18,000 out, but I don't think there would be support for it
In the past, we
motion?
have, well,
in a minute.
with respect to the Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission, in the past, we have withheld their money pending the financial audits and whatnot.
Which we would no
Which-
longer receive.
Which we no longer receive.
It-
So
it- The practices in the past that have happened have again fallen short. The grant processes that have happened and the work that has been done, yes, affects a portion of Portsmouth residents, but not all of the residents.
So if they are not providing us the financial backup that we've asked for, then we could we could reduce or eliminate their funding if the council so decided. I know in the past we've withheld it pending that information. I do know that they, in prior comments from the planning department, they still do provide some services to us. It's all up for debate to the exact extent of what we're getting dollar for dollar. Again, we could hold as we've done in the past, or we could, if we want to take action tonight.
I would
And
want to ask a question of town administration. Or the planning department, whichever feels appropriate to respond. It's a fairly simple question. We spend money on all of these civic support items
Mhm.
for many reasons. Most of them that aren't town entities would be services provided by the town if we had the means and departments. Many communities have a town library that's really a town library and not a separate entity. We give money to fund the library because it's something the town would do anyway, if we had a town library department. And that's true for many of these things. Arts Guild, we have lots of communities. Have. In the case of the planning, Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission, we have planning activities that we need to do and cooperate with other nearby communities to do it. We spend money in doing that. So the question I have for the administration is, does the $18,000 that we spend return to the town that amount of value or dollars or services?
I don't know how I could answer that. I can only offer that we fund $18,000 to an organization that in a perfect world would be offering regional planning for Quinnipiac Island. I think I'd be less than honest if I told you that I'm seeing that.
I'll point out, that's not the answer I've gotten in the past. So I'm not saying that circumstances change. I've asked this question many times before. Are we getting our money's worth? And if the answer is don't know how to answer, that's different.
I think in the past, under different administrations, we were getting it when they did a regional traffic study and funded that. And other work that has been done in the past, yes. In the past 6 or 7 years, it's been a rudderless ship as far as I can see. And the return on investment isn't there like it used to be.
I think we've asked the question in the past
Yeah.
and we've kind of given them the benefit of the doubt. And I agree, there's been a traffic study, I believe that was in 2011. The Island Waters grant was what, 2016? We haven't really seen much in a while. I agree with Rich that in a perfect world, I'd love to see an organization providing regional planning support to our municipalities, but I don't think we're seeing it. And given the budget that we're looking at right now, I think that $18,000 would be much better spent elsewhere.
So I just wanted to note, as recently as 2019, when I last asked that question, possibly 2020, the answer was an unqualified yes. That was now 2-3 years ago. And apparently, the
Maybe with
organization's
COVID,
having
we're
some
all taking a
challenges.
harder look at things. I don't know.
Gary can speak to this much better than I can, but I mean, I'm just going to use simple math, but if we take the portion that was, the amount of the funds that were a portion of Portsmouth with regard to the island waters, I think it is about, give or take $75,000. So I just divide that by $18,000 and I get 4 years. We've expended that.
And actually to that, I have a question. I think that $18,000, if we were to use that on a part-time grant writer or something along those lines, perhaps we could get more grant funding than the $75,000 that was allocated towards Portsmouth?
Yes, I was on a lengthy, as well as almost every department head today with the governor's staff, discussing that very issue with respect to the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Right now, there are well over 274 grant opportunities being made to communities across and organizations across the country. While this is an historic opportunity, there are significant challenges for municipalities. We are just not equipped to apply, prepare, and write the kinds of grant applications that are going to be required because of the stipulations that are being put into these grant opportunities. So we've reached out for help. I would never say no to somebody that can help us with grant writing. We always have to consider, though, it's not that simple. There are generally match requirements and other monitoring requirements that are placed on municipalities for accepting these grants. And the timing doesn't always work very well. So here we are, middle of April, approving a budget that will go into effect July 1st. Most of these grants don't even have start dates on them yet, but we anticipate third, fourth quarter of this year. If we haven't budgeted money now for match requirements and the applications close out in December, we've missed the boat. So this is always the catch-22 that we have with grant writing. But if we had an organization or an individual that was experienced in grant writing that could be funded, I would absolutely support that. And maybe that is a role that AIPC could take. I don't know. I can only speak to what we've seen lately.
I don't know if this is the correct answer or the right solution, but I would support moving that $18,000 to the planning department and setting up some kind of structure where we have funding allocated to the development of a grant pursuit strategy or something along those lines.
Based on the discussion or the I'm paraphrasing the resume of our new planner who is quote experienced in grant writing or has a specialist in grant writing, I would support that if you want to make a motion to that.
Yeah, and to that point, I think our new incoming town planner might have experience in grant writing. That said, she might not be able to do all of it herself,
Right.
but she can probably provide guidance and then would have some funding to procure the support that she would need. So I would move that we move the $18,000 from civic support to the planning department and establish a grant
Contingency.
pursuit contingency.
Sure. Second.
Okay. So we, all very, yep, all very good points. And we do have a motion in a second. I just want to take some comments. And then we'll take action.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Steve Johnson. I live at 44 Wapping Road here in Portsmouth. And I thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on behalf of the Equinix Island Planning Commission regarding our civic support request. I'm here to make the case for level funding for our organization. I say our organization, we are you. We are made up of your neighbors, 3 of whom you have appointed to the commission within the past year, past half year. As one of those new members, I've learned that much of what the AIPC does are activities with so-called long tails, such that relatively obscure actions taken today can result in large results over time. As a couple of you have alluded to, AIPC has had an extraordinary 15-year run of major initiatives. But even though much of that initial work on these activities has now concluded, there is still significant ongoing work continuing to this day, as you saw earlier this year when our commission chair presented our 2021 annual report to you. Please allow me to briefly touch on 4 of those. Flowing from the 2006 West Side Master Plan, Newport and Middletown have closed or are currently closing on agreements with the Navy related to their corresponding West Side property acquisitions. Portsmouth's work, however, as you know, is still ongoing. An infrastructure study of Burma Road, the Defense Highway, was completed and released at the end of 2021, and the follow-on work is ongoing this year. The 2011 Equinix Island Transportation Study that was just noted, the recommendations for that are still being implemented today. Newport is in the midst of a local transportation study informed by the island-wide study. Road diets have been implemented on key roadways to reduce high speeds and crashes, and the Pell Bridge ramp removal and relocation is underway with expected completion by 24-25. Not everything that the AAPC does benefits directly Portsmouth, but I'm certainly going to be happy to be able to get safely onto the Pell Bridge the next time I need to go off island, which I hope isn't anytime soon. The 2016 Island Waters Drinking and Coastal Water Quality Initiative identified stormwater best management practices across the island. Although originally targeted as just a 2-year demonstration program with $986,000 of original funding, AIPC was able to double that funding to cover the full cost of the Carriage Drive Oakland Farm wet vegetated treatment system, which benefits Portsmouth. Final construction will be completed in the next couple of months, with that project scheduled to sunset at that point. Also in 2016, AIPC hosted a Newport County-wide climate resilience meeting in partnership with the Rhode Island Investment Bank. The result was the development of a statewide climate resistance blueprint and a subsequent high-level statewide plan. In turn, this led to the development and evolution of the RIIB-funded Municipal Resilience Plan, of which, of course, Portsmouth was an early participant. And in 2021, after a strategic assessment review with the leadership of the island communities, AIPC received direction to work on housing and transportation which we are currently doing with other community stakeholders. In short, this is a partnership. We, your AIPC, we look forward to continuing to work with you and to continuing to support the town staff. Thank you for your time this evening. Do you have any questions?
Mrs. Johnson, thank you for the information. I think, unfortunately, I think some of us have been on the council for a while. And we've kind of gone through some of the iterations with AIPC, and there have unfortunately been, turnover. There's been changes. And I know the Island Water Program was geared towards, the watershed protection and everything. And unfortunately, a lot of that work really benefited, was not, I don't want to say benefited, a lot of that work was really carried out more in Middletown and Newport, because that's where the bulk of the watershed is and the water bodies. The Portsmouth piece was for the backup reservoirs and such. So, that was just a function of the program. I mean, it was still a very worthy program. The town did get, their fair share of services. I think there was a lot of investigation done to help map the system and things. But, in the big picture, the island watershed, the Island Waters Program, it was a big success for AIPC. Portsmouth's piece of it was kind of not as big, because I think more of it was performed in Middletown, because that's where maybe more of the bang for the buck was captured in Middletown and Newport. And that's just a function of how the program was. And that's not to say it slighted Portsmouth at all. That's how the program was set up, and that's where the focus needed to be in order to achieve the water quality benefits. AIPC has also done a lot for the transportation system on the island. They've been very big proponents of the bike paths and connections. Some of that stuff, though, I think what we're seeing is it might be a situation where Portsmouth needs to be their own advocate on some of those issues in order to get more bang for their buck. With the limited funding, if we're able to reallocate the 18,000 into our planning department, then our planning department's going to have a little more resources to really advocate for our issues, with respect to coordinating with DOT, coordinating with DEM on the stormwater side. We just saw it's about a $7,000 line item for stormwater. I mean, this could also help fund some of those stormwater initiatives that we might need to take on. So I think, what I'm seeing is that in the past, we've given AIPC the benefit. And, when I mentioned it earlier, we got to the point where we had to withhold money. Like we had to withhold until we got information.
I heard that.
And then it stopped. And then, then the reports have stopped. So I know it's a partnership, but it seems like, we're the ones that have been providing the money, and then we're not really getting not necessarily from a project perspective, but just the information back to say, how the money's being used or what things are going on. And that there's two sides to everything. But these reports were something that, we stressed a lot about. We wanted to make sure that we were getting, the audited reports, and that, they weren't very forthcoming. So I think I'm just reading the room. I think it's been a situation where, we've kind of maybe been pushed to the brink.
I understand. May I offer a couple of clarifications to what I just heard?
Sure.
So first, one of the three big WIBITS projects, I learned how to say that, the wet vegetated treatment systems, although on the Middletown Portsmouth town line, it benefits the watershed in the Sisson Pond, St. Mary Pond area. So, and that's was, I believe, because I wasn't there at the time, but I believe that was slightly more than 1/3 of the total dollars that was spent of that nearly $2 million. So that's a Portsmouth project that has benefited us. Also, in talking with our current town planner, there are things that he would like to see a regional planning body to take on. And Gary has provided with me a 154-page document that I haven't quite finished reading, 2001 data study that can be updated. It would obviously require a grant that the ARPC would write to support the work of the town planners. Additionally, there is a lot of corporate memory in the AIPC that I believe can be quite beneficial to Leah Hutchin as she comes on board, and Gary's overlap ends after 7 weeks. And then we have resources that are still available to be able to assist with that. There are other activities that I have been working with. I certainly, broadband comes immediately to mind, of course, but the points that you have raised collectively, Mr. Hamilton especially, are points that I was not happy to see as I came in as a new director. There is new blood on the Equipment Island Planning Commission, not just me, strong individuals. Portsmouth has a strong team of 4 representatives on the Planning Commission. And our request, my request, is give us 1 more year to show what we can do. Thank you.
Here's my rebuttal to that for you.
Okay.
Your 5-minute, 3, 4, 5-minute rundown of things that they have done or working on is more than we've gotten in the past 7 years.
I understand. That's why I'm here.
And at some point, we have to decide that if we're going to continually be ignored, projects put in to the DOT or other entities before that affect the town of Portsmouth, before coming to the town of Portsmouth and saying, hey, we're going to go up and advocate for a bike path that goes down East Main Road. Never came here. It was part of the study, but they never came forward and said, we're going to advocate for this. What do you think? Nope, just went up to the state and did it. Little small things like that don't show partnership. It shows an entity that just wants $18,000 and then leave us alone for another 12 months, and then we'll come back and ask for $18,000 again. To me, this is a kick in the butt. And
Yes.
they have to come back, or yourself, come back next year and say, hey, I know you didn't give us the $18,000 last year, but these are all the things that we're doing for Portsmouth now. Can you give it to us again? For me, the $18,000 goes away because they have not lived up to all of the things we've asked them to do over the past 7 or 8 years. And I can't do that anymore. If that was Mr. Woodhead, Chief Lee, good guy, sorry. God, Chief Peters, they wouldn't be here anymore.
I understand.
So this is, AIPC can't be here anymore until they learn to hold up their end of the bargain.
What would
That's
you
the
like
way-
to see in terms of reporting to the council? For one
They
thing,
already have that, they already have it.
Can-
Ask them to go back and see what they were supposed to do. I'm not going to tell you because they were supposed to be doing it quarterly and it's stopped.
I understand.
Dead in the water. They've never done it.
My
Can I make a
proposal-
suggestion?
Ma'am.
So I agree with Mr. Hamilton. This is my 4th year only doing this budget, and every year we have the same discussion. Like, it's crickets all year, and then somebody shows up at the last minute to ask us to, level fund AIPC, and we've been doing it, right? But fool me once, et cetera, et cetera. And I think I'm to the same point where it's just foolish to keep giving the $18,000 if we're not seeing the bare minimum of what we've asked for. My recommendation would be, the $18,000 goes to our planning department. Now it's on you or AIPC, develop a relationship with our new planner. Show her that you're the right entity for us to work with for regional planning, that you can support us for the grant writing needs that we have. And if she shows up here in a year and says unequivocally, the AIPC is the right organization to provide the support that she needs to get funding for Portsmouth, then we can talk. But short of that, I don't see why we would keep writing checks.
I do not take any of this personally. I was not.
Good. It's
there.
not intended
And
personally.
nor
was
you-
not
nor
there
should-
at
nor
this
should
time.
you.
And there's a lot of baggage that comes along with this, and I'm sure you understand that.
It is not a comfortable thing for me to do, to stand in front of you and to say, there is a new team. This team hears what has happened in the past and I will personally represent the leadership of the AIPC at quarterly presentations on this dais. And I will provide whatever else it is that you feel you need to best partner with your AIPC.
We appreciate it.
Mr. President, I would just like to address a couple points that were made. I mean, I believe the town administrator was implying that we have not we would have been giving 18,000 for 4 years, and we did not get back the 72,000 that represents in terms of benefits to the town. Is that what you were implying?
No, I was just stating that, our portion of the Island Waters grant, if you just take the 18,000, simple math, because we're talking about funding them. And I understand all the points. I've been listening to it for 7 years. If you just divide that by the 18,000, it equates to about 4 years. That 4 years ran out.
Well, that's, I guess I'd like a little bit more investigation into, because my understanding from what Mr. Johnson just said, and also my memory, is that about $826,000 of the grant money was spent on Portsmouth projects relating to St. Mary's and Sissons Pond. And $830,000, you get a lot of $18,000 yearly.
That was spent on a property within the confines of Portsmouth that services the Newport water supply. It doesn't, so if you want to take that out and say there's 60,000 customers of Newport water supply, divide it over that. We can't, an organization like AIPC should be doing that kind of a grant every single year.
$1
Not-
million grant every single year?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
If they want our funding, they should be doing that every year, not not coming back and saying, hey, 5 years ago, we got $1 million grant, we're still working on it.
Well,
It-
I understand that is your position, but I think at the end of the day, the question has to be, is the AIPC doing work that is benefiting people in Portsmouth? And all of the financial issues that are being raised do not go to proving that there is any financial shenanigans going on. As far as I can tell, the work is being conducted by legitimate contractors and it's benefiting the residents of Portsmouth. So I'm not exactly sure why we wouldn't want to continue to support a regional planning organization in an era when we've been told multiple times that municipalities don't get money. Regional efforts get money. And, we did appoint people from the community who are very, very energized, I know are very smart. And, it's a function of maintaining our commitment to regional planning. And I believe that just to abandon it for reasons that are not related to whether the town people are being benefited and whether there is in fact some sort of financial issues just doesn't seem like a good way to proceed. We don't do that with any of the other organizations that we are giving far more money to. And I'm not sure that it behooves us to, as a community, to reject regional planning, which this would certainly be a marker for doing.
I don't call it a rejection. I call it a shot across the bow to say, you have to step up your game to get our $18,000
Well,
because
I'd
we're
like
not
to-
seeing it.
You,
We've asked them for the past 7 years to do something and show us that they deserve the money and they can't.
they are showing you these reports and you have never
What
pointed out
reports?
what the reports that they've been submitting
When?
about, excuse.
When?
Do you want a date?
Hold on.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have that date, but it's a question. Where are your specific concerns, Mr. Hamilton? What are you
With the
saying
management of the organization
in the work that's
not
done?
coming here and showing us that they're doing the work for us, not working collaboratively with the council and the planning department to say, these are the things we're working on, Portsmouth.
Well,
Can you
they,
give us support?
they have actually made an effort, I believe, in the last year to meet with all the planning directors on Aquidneck Island. So they are making that effort. And it is difficult, as you
Great.
know, to coordinate town planners because, you know, it's almost a every man for himself situation out there. So, you know, I understand your concerns, but they've never been more than procedural ones where you say they aren't coming here and telling us what they're doing. You've never gone into detail about what work they've done that doesn't meet your requirements. So I guess I'm just looking for that.
If I-
Procedurally, and I'll just speak for my position. If I don't hand in the reports and do the work that I'm supposed to be doing and report back to my boss, I get fired. AIPC is not doing those things. So guess what? They can get fired for a year.
And is the Prevention Coalition doing that? Is the library doing
Yes.
that? Is the senior
Yes.
center doing that?
Yes. I can tell you that the library is absolutely doing what they're supposed to be doing and supporting. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't get the money.
We don't ask for quarterly reports from. the
No,
library.
I don't
From
need
various
quarterly
organ-
reports from the library
Right.
because I know it's a well-run organization.
Right.
Give
No,
us an
I,
annual report.
right.
Okay.
If I may ask, I would like to impose upon our soon-to-be leaving planning director to either affirm what he's heard from the town administrator or provide a different opinion. If you could, please, yes.
Mr. Crosby, can you come to the podium?
Start again. Gary Crosby, Town Planner. I live at 51 Cerdugland Road. Given all this talk about the new planner coming on board and respecting what she wants to do going forward with AIPC, I think probably it's inappropriate for me to comment about that. Given that, my past answer to this very question every year for the last 4 or 5 years has been, I'm a big fan of planning. Obviously, I'm a big fan of regional planning, and I think that AIPC is the entity here, given the insular nature of our geography, that AIPC can be a viable entity for regional planning.
Is it my turn?
Yes. Are you going to speak on the AIPC? You're going to talk about Newport County mental health. So we have to clear out this vote before we go back to your, so yes, it's your turn in a second.
So,
You have 2 motions on the table. One is to strip the $18,000 out and move it to the planning department contingency grant something, grant contingency line. And then the second one would be to pass the entire thing. So we can obviously take that one. So all you have to do is take up this Abbott's motion first.
And are you saying that the 18,000 in the planning budget some of it could go to the AIPC? Or are you saying that none of it should?
I suppose that would be up to our new town planner.
And a decision in the future. That's a line item that holds money.
It's a line item in the budget that if she
Yeah.
came back and said, hey, they got this great thing and I want to work with them on it, can I have $5,000 to get the AIPC? She can come back to us and ask for that. But
Yeah.
at this point in time, to just give them it's not a blank check, it's $18,000, so it's not blank. At this point in time, I just don't see the rationale for doing it. And I just think it's a kick in the pants. To say, because we've been saying this for the past 5 years, and we get the same, yeah, but we're doing this, and I'll go back and I respect what you're saying, but it's the same thing. Yes, a regional planning authority going out and getting money should be doing that $1 million plus a year, period. And they're not. And if us taking away that $18,000 sinks the organization, that says something further that the organization wasn't that steady to begin with.
Okay, so just to be clear, the reallocation of the 18,000 into the planning budget would give the planner the discretion to possibly work with AIPC on initiatives.
Or to bring in
not,
their own.
or
Yeah,
to do something different. But I mean,
I
they-
would recommend that you don't sit there and
Yeah.
saddle it to AIPC.
right.
No.
No, the 18th just
Give
goes
the
in. It's
planning
up
department
to
the
the planning
discretion to
department.
use it for
Right.
grant
They-
writing, which is, I think, what Ms. Abbott was.
Absolutely. They would have the discretion to use it, so it wouldn't rule out
Correct.
working with AIPC or any other.
Just a question. Does the planner have the authority to disperse town funds to a 501(c)(3)?
No,
No, that would have to
back
go
us.
to the
She'd come to
council.
us.
Yeah. But it would be in the budget.
It would be in the budget, but they would have to come back and ask permission.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
just to say, I have a grant
contract.
writer or a consultant who's gonna help me, gonna be $2,000 to help write this grant for
That's what I thought.
X, Y, Z, I don't know, wastewater study or whatever it is.
Correct.
Right.
And at least in that situation, I think there'd be a proposal and a plan on the table as to what the $18,000 would be used for. And so it'd be easier to, you know, kind of weigh the value for our investment.
So it doesn't leave the budget, and if they come back and make a compelling case next year, it can go back.
We're midway through the year.
Wow.
Through the planner,
Right.
requesting funds for
So the
some,
money would be in the planning budget.
right.
Right, so we're not taking it out of the budget. It's in a place that's gettable, I guess, would be it.
Accessible. All right,
I would just like reclarification on what the motion was.
so the motion was to, we'll go to the clerk.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
The motion was to reallocate the $18,000 from civic support from the AIPC line, move it into the planning department line as a hold for grant writing or to the discussion of the planner.
Right.
And then
Yeah,
go back with
whatever-
the rest of it.
If that.
Whatever we
discretion
call
to
the line
planner
item, I
phrase
guess
is
will
in
be
there,
up to
then
Mr.
that-
Rayner.
We suggest we call it a grant writing support line.
Perfect.
Grant
So yeah,
writing.
into the planning department under grant writing support.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Nay.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Nay.
Dr. Ryan?
Nay.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 4-3.
So, Mr. President, so we don't lose sight of it, if we can just go back to page 43.
Do you want to go back to planning first and,
That's what I'm doing,
okay.
page 43.
So it makes
So
it-
we would add grant writing support for $18,000. That would change the expenditure for the planning department to $382,498. So you would need to re-provisionally approve the planning budget for $382,498.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Kinsley, and I am here representing Newport Mental Health. I'm actually a grant specialist with Newport Mental Health. I'm here to say thank you for continuing to your support of the work that we do for our community. You know, the pandemic has caused a lot of havoc with a lot of people's lives, and what we're seeing in the terms of the numbers of people affected by mental illness coming out of this pandemic is very startling. We're expanding the work that we're doing to assist elders, children, and individuals living in BIPOC communities. But I just wanted to note that for children, we are actually in a crisis. And it was declared, Hasbro Children's Hospital joined with Bradley Hospital on the 21st of this month to join in with the Rhode Island branch of the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and Children's Hospital Association to declare a mental health emergency for Rhode Island. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for individuals between the ages of 10 and 24 years old. And we need to get the help to the people where they are. We have counselors in all of the schools within Portsmouth. We are looking to broaden the services, working with emergency services. We are here to help in any way that you see fit for us to work within the town. I did bring with me some of our annual reports, if anybody would care to have one. There's a lot of work to do. And we've been around since 1964. We're not going anywhere. We know what we're doing, and we follow the best in practice, evidence-based mental health treatment programs to provide results. The act of having mental health in a community setting greatly improves outcomes for individuals when they are not removed from their support system. We will continue to be that gold standard of treatment for the residents of all of Newport County. And I would entertain any questions that you may have.
I don't have any questions, just a thank you. I know it's been a very trying past 2 years. Especially for the kids. The work you're doing is close to God's work. So keep them safe. It's been, I see it in my own kids, and they're older. So it's not easy.
Yes.
Have to agree, this has been an absolutely hideous couple of years. The number of people coming in of all ages with depression, anxiety, disrupted families, it's just been appalling. We actually have been working to try to achieve parity for reimbursement for mental health services at the level of the State House, which
Yes.
we certainly hope will happen.
Yes.
One of the problems, this is why I actually asked that some funds, and this is really a token amount, be given to Newport County Mental Health a few years ago, because mental health is so chronically under reimbursed. It's really quite appalling. So thank you very much for working under such adverse circumstances.
Thank you. And we do intend to be at the State House tomorrow to advocate for the passage of bills to help with the parity and also help with the infrastructure. And this is a time of great opportunity for grant writing. And I encourage you to utilize whatever resources you may have at your disposal. But for a mental health organization, we cannot sustain on grants. This has to be funded properly. This has to be taken seriously. And it shouldn't take a pandemic to get the attention, but thank God it did. Anything further? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, as a result of the last motion that passed, the civic support expenditures will be revised to $1,057,311, and we asked the town council to provisionally approve that amount.
So well, you've already had a motion and a second to provisionally approve. But we've changed it. So we probably have to remove the first motion, but I have.
You should probably, I think you had a motion to approve that first amount, then you started discussing.
Right.
Jen, if you can confirm that.
And I just want to make a couple quick comments because there are 4 additions this year. Totaling of about totaling $6,000. I see the East Bay Community Action Program because they directly affect Portsmouth residents. I see the Portsmouth Arts Guild. My only issue with the Portsmouth Arts Guild is if you go open up that can of worms, then you're going to have Little League soccer, football, lacrosse, and everybody else coming in and asking for money because it's an extracurricular activity. The Battles of Rhode Island Association is doing potentially work that the town should be doing because they're trying to rebuild a fort or rediscover the fort. Yeah.
Conserve it.
The Wildlife Rehabbers Association, I feel like if we give the Wildlife Rehabbers Association $1,500, that's going to open up a whole nother can of worms for people looking for money next year. And at some point, we have to stop handing out taxpayer money. I would be comfortable leaving the bottom line alone. And not just because she got up and made a nice speech, but because I know that removing the $3,000 and the ending of the beat rate for Nate may lead to more mental health issues at the high school, that we should move that $1,500 from wildlife rehabilitators, I tried to say, and move it to the Newport County Mental Health and change their line item to $5,200. I would make that a
I would
motion.
support that. Was that a motion?
There was a motion, second
I
by
second
Dr. Ryan. Okay. So we do that first and then do the full bottom line. So my motion is to move the $1,500 from wildlife rehabilitators and move it to Newport County Mental Health, changing wildlife rehabbers to 0 and Newport County Mental Health to 5,200.
Okay.
Mr. President, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I thought we had funded the wildlife rehabilitators in the past. Something to do with the animal control, perhaps?
No.
Chief Peters? No? Just checking.
I'm gonna
say
I
no.
think the money in the budget that you're referring to is for the Potters League, which is for the operations of essentially our shelter.
I also thought as well in the past that we have funded them. I spoke with the animal control officer before, and I know they do provide services to the town of Portsmouth residents when we have a wildlife animal that's found. Us in the Potter League sometimes can't take certain animals, certain birds, and the wildlife rehabilitation does provide it. I don't have the numbers with me today as far as how many times that we have used them, but we do use them very frequently throughout the year. I thought we had provided them as well as Mr. Kelly. I don't see it up here on the previous, the ones I saw, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I could have sworn that we had in the past.
It hasn't
Unless
been.
they've
It's
changed
been before
names.
my time. It hasn't.
I don't remember ever seeing that in a budget. I looked that one up, 2 times last year. I'm an animal lover, but I love people more. And I think the $1,500 is better served for the mental health of our children
This
than
was curious.
trying to save Bambi. It's a bald eagle. That would-
They do that too.
So we have the first motion here is the wildlife rehabilitators moving the 1,500. Ms. Hamilton, you brought up the Arts Guild as well as the Battle of Rhode Island Association. Are those something that as a council we want to add in?
They're added in now.
They're added in.
Yes.
They're added in. we initially accepted everything and limited everything to the 2%. So that was really our criteria. So we did level fund a lot of these groups. So at this point, the only change we'll make then is the wildlife rehabilitators. Okay.
As I said, my concern is that we're cracking that door open for a
Again.
lot more requests next year. So we need to be very careful not to go down that slope. I can make an argument that the organizations listed are doing jobs that we would not otherwise be doing,
Agreed.
or we should be doing.
What if we were of different means or
Right.
scope, we would.
So
All right, well, I know we'll wrestle with it, or we'll wrestle with it in the fall when the requests come in.
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
the next time we'll have to. Okay, so we had a motion and a second to move the 1,500 to Newport County Mental Health. All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye, motion passes 7-0.
So I will make a motion to provisionally approve the civic support bottom line at $1,057,311.
Seconded.
It's just
That
waiting
was-
for the
that was the
administrator
number.
to say, yeah, the math is.
All those in favor?
Actually, I looked past him to the finance director to make sure she's nodding.
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye, motion passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. If we turn to page 70. Here we have our capital improvement plan. I briefed that Monday night. You can see the proposed capital plan here in the budget. There are a number of projects, however, that we will fund through ARPA, which was previously discussed late last year. And so they're not included in this discussion because those projects will be funded through federal funds, grant funds. Of note, we will address needed town hall roof repairs, IT upgrades, equipment and vehicle replacement, the fire station renovations, and playground renovations. We are asking town council provisional approval of $1,049,263 for the FY23 capital improvement plan.
So moved.
Second, and for those who didn't ask the question, I did ask the question since we did have this repaired. It's the other part of the town hall roof that's getting repaired next.
It's true.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. So now we'll address the enterprise funds. If you turn to page 81. Now, for those, I know I say this every year, but there's always people who ask. Enterprise funds are established to account for operations of a specific activity. Enterprise funds are segregated from other town funds and accounts with the intent that revenues generated by the enterprise activity will be devoted principally to funding all operations of the enterprise activity. In plain language, the revenues generated by the enterprise activity are intended to pay for the cost and operation of that activity. So here on page 81, you see the first enterprise fund listed, the Glen Farm Equestrian Center. In accordance with the concessionaire's contract with the town, the concessionaire shall pay this year, next fiscal year, a town base fee of $18,846. In accordance with the contract, they also pay 5% of their annual gross receipts, an amount not to exceed the first $5,000 of revenue share generated during each quarter of the initial terms, years 1 through 5, shall be immediately credited back to the concessionaire to be invested in repairs, renovation, and long-term maintenance. This is monitored through a regular review of the center's financial statements by the Director of Economic Development. So we expect revenue remittance in the amount of $18,846. And with respect to operations, we expect that $18,846 to be used for grounds maintenance and repairs. So we request provisional approval of $18,846 for that expense.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mrs. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. On the next page, page 82, there's no vote required. This is the Transfer Station Enterprise Fund, which you approved last November 22nd. So if we move to page 83. Here we have the Glen Manor House. The pandemic is waning and the Glen Manor House is seeing a significant increase in the number of bookings. We are asking you to provisionally approve projected revenue Other. There are 4 proposals in this section other than capital improvement, which you have already approved. OPEB, Open Space Reserve Fund, Capital Reserve Fund, and the Town Contingency Fund. We are asking you to provisionally approve $150,000 in additional funds for the OPEB account, $20,000 to be added to the Open Space Reserve Fund, $353,125 for the Capital Reserve Fund, and $50,000 to be added to the Town Contingency account.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
So at this point, Mr. President, the council has approved all appropriate sections of the proposed expenditures. In total, we are asking you to provisionally approve $69,967,453 in expenditures, which is equal to the sum of provisionally approved revenues.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
So, Mr. President, this concludes the provisional meetings process for the fiscal year 23 budget. The next budget focus meeting will be the public hearing in June.
No, we're not having a meeting tomorrow.
Says the town clerk.
Budget hearing is the 20th and 19th.
It's clerk week.
Bear with me 2 seconds, I'll tell you.
Madam Clerk, 19th or the 20th? What's the date of the budget hearing? You know, off the top of your
It
head?
is
I've got it right here. It's in the front of the book.
It's June
15th.
15th.
15th, okay. And-
15th,
and-
Wednesday, the 15th.
And we scheduled that for the high school?
You haven't decided yet,
Still in the
so that'll come up
works.
in the next council meeting. We'll need to decide what venue we're going to use.
So should we contact the schools just to make sure we have one of those available? I prefer the high school because it's got a better audio system. The middle school system's horrible. Unless they've replaced it and they got, yes, they get the skis on the ceiling.
We'll
But
see what we can do.
I don't anticipate needing it this year. But we should at least reserve it if needed.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Second. On Mike this time.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. And we'll see you. When's our next meeting? May 9th. See you May 9th.